Hi, I'm Justine, and I'm here to tell you being mentally ill isn't the end of the world. I know what it's like to live with a mental illness. It's hard. You're constantly trying to hide your struggles from others, and you feel like you're weaker than others because of your illness. But that's not true. So many badasses struggle with mental illnesses, but they don't talk about them because they're afraid of being judged or thought of as weak-minded. Well, guess what? They're not. We can change that by talking openly about our struggles and sharing our stories with each other in a positive light. This is why I created Mentally a Badass, so we can come together as badasses who are also mentally ill or who's had it rough in life and share our stories with one another in a safe place that celebrates our strengths rather than shames our weaknesses. I hope this podcast helps you feel less alone in this crazy life of ours, and I hope it makes your life just a little bit better. Hey everybody, welcome back to Mentally a Badass, the podcast where we push the boundaries of the mental health conversation. My name is Justine, and I'm very excited to announce that we are now going to be having 2 episodes per week. We're going to be doing 1 solo and 1 interview with a guest. So the guest episodes are going to go up either Wednesday morning or Thursday morning. Please follow our Instagram for the most updated information on that. Our Instagram is @mentallyabadass. So if you guys don't know, P.S., not sponsored, but the reason I'm bringing this up, if you guys don't know what Threads is the newest social media app. We love it here at Mentally Badass. We love that app because it gives us an opportunity to connect with you guys, and we feel that is super important is to build a community, especially in the mental health industry, because community helps so much with mental health. So we were able to go on Threads and ask you guys what mental health topics you want us to talk about. Today's episode is going to be the root cause of anxiety and depression. So let's get into it. Let me first say that there is not just one thing in life that causes anxiety and depression. There are so many things that contribute to it, and then we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about that in this podcast episode. It's honestly a full-time job to have your mental health in check these days, but we are now living in a world where talking about it is more socially acceptable. So let's talk about the first thing. The first thing is genetics. So if someone in like your parents or your grandparents have struggled with disorders such as depression and anxiety, you're most likely to develop it later on in life, or even as a kid. It really depends on the person. Everybody is unique and different. The great news is that just because a family member has depression and anxiety and you have that gene inside your body doesn't mean that you're going to develop it later in life. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So if you are a parent listening to this and are about to have kids or and such, really just being aware that, let's say you have a child, let's say you know you have depression, anxiety, and then you have children, just being mindful that it's absolutely extremely possible for them to develop the same disorder. What I would do is just trying to dedicate your time and effort to create systems to help avoid that for precaution. I know it's easier said than done. I know everybody's living situation is different, but it's all about the effort. Some things that would be beautiful to do is there's actually things out there where you can have like helping your kids with emotional regulation. So doing that at a young age for a child is going to help them tremendously when they grow up, because they're going to be ahead of the game. A lot of teenagers in high school who never had that, this is how people get into fights. This is how people get in trouble, because it's completely normal for a human being to get angry. It's all about having the type of skill set to be able to regulate those emotions. So there's so much out there these days, and I think it's beautiful. The next thing that I like to talk about is the environmental factor. So if you guys have been listening to Mentally a Badass over the years, you guys know that I used to live in New Jersey, near New York City, Manhattan area. New Jersey is very fast-paced, and I'm still trying to find the best word of explaining this. I feel like hostile is kind of a dirty word. Not really a dirty word, but it's kind of like a mean word. I don't want to look down on New Jersey. at all, because at the end of the day, it is where I was born and raised, and I'm always going to be deep down a Jersey girl, but I left there for a reason. I am a sensitive person. I have, anxiety and depression and bipolar and all of that. Living in a fast-paced, hostile, high-stress area is not ideal for someone who struggles with those mental illnesses. It creates a lot of flare-ups, and it did a lot when I was there for a month. I had a couple of episodes while I was there, and it was because of all of the high stress and high pace, and it's just not ideal for me. So I moved to Florida, and Florida is definitely slower paced, and there's more sun, it's different vibe over here. So environment is very, very important to your health overall, period. Like your mental health, your physical health. This part's a little bit irrelevant, but I'm going to bring it up just so I can just kind of prove my point. Ariel, the other co-founder of this brand, she mentioned in her article that she writes for our brand, by the way, if you're curious to read it, it's at mentallyabadass.com. She talks about how she used to live in New York, and she would develop all her physical illnesses would be flared up, and it would become really dangerous. And her doctor recommended to her parents to move to a sunnier climate. So they moved for that reason, and all of those issues went away. So I know that's physical and not mental, but my point is environment has so much to do with your health. Like, it's insane. And one physical thing that I deal with that I dealt with in New Jersey was eczema, a skin disease. I came to Florida, literally never struggled with eczema ever again. It's crazy. So even though it's a physical example, it's the same thing for mental health, in my opinion. I feel that my mental health definitely has changed when I moved here to Florida, considering environments where you feel that you are meant to be. The next thing we're going to talk about is nutrition and food. So what you are putting in your body. So this is a topic that I'm so passionate about. I'm extremely passionate about it because the foods that we eat has so much to do with how our physical health is going to be, how our mental health is going to be. I'm sure you heard that saying, you are what you eat. You literally are. So, I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion. The only reason it's going to be unpopular opinion is because I know parents are going to be like, well, our kids, they like their candy and stuff. I'm not saying to completely take them away from candy, but listen to this. The sugary cereals that you're giving your kids, like the Fruit Loops, the Frosted Flakes, is literally horrible for your child's development. It can cause ADHD, it can cause depression, it can cause anxiety. There was literally a TikTok that I saw, it was actually hilarious. And it was pictures, and pretty much a person was grabbing a cereal box from the shelf and it said ADHD flakes. I thought that was iconic because it's true. It's true. It can also disrupt sleep, all the sugary foods. And the thing is, it's like when kids have, let's say, behavioral issues or anxiety, depression and such, no one thinks about food, about what you're feeding your kids. If you look at the ingredients, stuff that you can't even pronounce, why are we putting that in a body that is literally growing? That is going to disrupt the growth, which is going to cause problems. And I'm so thankful that I know this kind of information before I have kids. And I know people are going to look at me and be like, wow, she's such a strict mom. She's this and this and that. I don't believe that we should, of course, not give kids fun food to eat, because I want kids to enjoy food. I feel like food should be enjoyable. There's so many foods out there that is healthy, that is delicious. The one thing that I would do that many people may not, and who knows, maybe the person listening to this would, but from my experience, the majority wouldn't, is take the time to source these foods. It's there, it's available. And I mean, this is not sponsored, but Thrive Market is an example. They literally have healthy foods out there that you can order directly to your home. So we literally live in this world where it's easier to source things, to access things. And I get it, like, I don't know everyone's life. Completely understand that. But just putting in that little bit of effort. By the way, I'm sorry if you keep hearing a weird sound. I don't know if it's my mic or if I need to get a filter thing. I do apologize for that. I'm trying my best to not have that happen. Anyway. All right, next thing we're going to talk about is mindset. We literally have the power to control our minds. It's not easy, but at the end of the day, we have that power. We have that free will. So if we go through life with a very pessimistic attitude, you're more likely to feel with depression. And yes, I know being pessimistic is a symptom of depression, but it's also vice versa. Our mind's default mode is negativity. So it's easy to think negative and not have any hope. Our brains were literally born wired that way but we have the ability to rewire our brain. So some ways you can rewire that is talking positive out loud. Your subconscious is listening to what you are saying to yourself. If you have a desire to start thinking positive, another thing you can do is avoid the negativity in the news. The media, literally only talks about negativity because they know the human brain. They know that majority of the people is going to be defaulting to negativity. So in order for them to get views and make money, they feed into that. And I'm going to say that again. The news is negative. They only show negative because they know how the human brain works. Now, if you didn't know, you do know. The human brain defaults to negativity. You just have to take that extra effort and step to make it positive. And I know that it's not easy. It's not perfect. Nothing's meant to be perfect. But it's possible. So instead of watching the news, read books. Books are... I can't even think of any negative books, to be honest with you. I don't even think I know any. They're mostly positive or they're fiction. But I always read books. That helps me a lot. It feeds my mind with more positivity than negativity. And that helps change my mind. Also, just being surrounded by people who think like this. So if you're surrounded by people who is just always negative, always kind of mediocre. All they do is just work, party. Like literally the only work is because they have to pay bills. Because that's how our society is built. So I get that. You got to pay your bills. But if all you do is just work a mediocre job, come home, watch TV, drink, whatever, go and then just party on the weekends, those are the people who most likely do have that negative mindset. I'm not saying for all. I don't know every single human being in this earth, but statistically it is. So finding the people that think like us, which is you can go on Facebook and find groups like that with people who have your mindset, which is the beautiful thing of social media, is finding your people. So it's, a lot of times people do find their people online because they're in a small town and everyone thinks the same, and then you're kind of like the black sheep. You're like, I don't agree with you. And it's hard to think differently than other people. It truly is. My mind is so different ever since I moved from New Jersey. And that's because when I used to work for a company, everyone there, majority of the people, had more of a positive mindset because we worked for a company that was all about it, the culture. So me just constantly being surrounded that and people thinking in a different way, I absorbed all that for 5 years. And so when I go back to where I came from, I'm like, whoa, mind blown. I'm like, holy shit. People do not think like me at all. So I kind of feel a little I feel a little outside of everybody else. And I feel like I'm changing even more and more and more and more and more, that it's gonna like, people are like literally not gonna recognize me. But it's a good thing. It's crazy, right? Wow. It's very nice. Okay. Next thing we're gonna talk about is traumatic events. This could be child abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. I've personally dealt with abuse as a child and a teenager, mostly emotional, but it really messes up with your mental health. I held this deep belief that I wasn't good enough. And when you're a child, you are in the time of your life where you're creating your self-identity. For a huge portion of my life, I developed this identity of myself that I was stupid, weird, and ugly. I always thought so down of myself. And even though I know I'm not any of those things, when I get triggered, my brain automatically reverts back to my deep belief that I'm not good enough. Traumatic events suck. You can definitely heal from them, which goes back to, changing your mindset. Lastly, I want to talk about lifestyle. Our lifestyle is a key indicator of your mental health. So how do you want to live your life? Do you want to live with purpose, or do you want to live in survival mode? If you don't know the key differences, let's go ahead and talk about both. So living in survival mode is going to work for the sake of paying your bills and coming home, watching TV, just to fill in that time, and then you just sleep. Doing those 5 days a week, then living your weekend drunk or drugged up. We as humans are not meant to live like this. We are meant to explore. We're meant to discover. We have so much potential to create amazing things and have a beautiful life. But unfortunately, not everyone has that same motivation. And to be honest, I don't really blame them. Everyone's life is completely different. I used to be someone who used to live that way until I was introduced to different people and they changed my mindset. I truly believe once you do meet that right person in your life, your mind is going to go from purpose over survival. So living in purpose is always learning, always working towards something. Your education should not end in high school or college. There's so much in life that is meant to learn. Every time I learn something new, I feel so much better about myself because I feel a sense of purpose. We live in a world where there's so much free education on YouTube, on podcasts. So let's talk about what something you want to learn. I'm going to put it if you're listening on Spotify, I'm going to put a poll on there, and I want to know something you want to learn. And yeah, let's connect. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you really do truly liked it, please share it on your Instagram story and tag us. That's a way for our podcast to grow and to grow overall the Mentally a Badass brand. Thank you guys so much for support, and stay tuned for the next episode.